Welcome back. This is the Sweet Spark podcast. I am Danielle McCormick. I'm the co-founder of Sweet Solutions and your co-host here on the Sweet Spark podcast, talking all things exit expert with Miss Stephanie.
Hello, everyone. I am the other co-host, and I am so excited for today's episode. We are going to be talking all things hidden revenue opportunities. Everybody's going to be excited about this episode because everybody wants to find more revenue opportunities, right? This is exciting stuff. And what I love about what you have prepared for us today is that it is all stuff that can happen without a lot of extra effort, right? We don't want to create a new wheel or do something outside of what we've already got going. I know that people leave money on the table all of the time. Danielle, when you go into businesses, what are, let's say, the 4 top places where you find some hidden revenue opportunities? Can you tell us about those?
Sure. Yes. So the places that I tend to find hidden revenue are when folks sell one thing. So say you are a photographer and you sell, obviously, your services for weddings, for engagement photos, different types of events, and you're selling those 1-year-old birthday smash cake type of sessions and different things like that, right? But there's a lot of things that you can do when adding to your service or taking away from your service that will help you unlock additional customer markets. And the way I say it that way is because if I say just add more customer markets, you're going to be like, what the fuck does that mean? But it's taking your same knowledge, right, and packaging it in a different way that allows you to either charge more or charge less. And then you're going to bring in a different customer. You may bring a more value customer if you're going to go down the scale, or you may bring in a higher end customer that's going to go up the scale and pay you more money. And about this story, we are saying if you're a photographer, now I'm going to start posting about photography lessons. Or I'm going to start posting about different ways to pose, or I'm going to sell light filters. There's a lot of folks that do that. They'll sell presets, right? And so these are very low cost things that really don't take you much time. There's stuff that you would already be doing, but it allows you to bring in another customer segment that may be looking for photography services, but they're a little more on the DIY side rather than having you do it with or for them. Then you can go up the scale. So we went down the scale to bring in some value customers. Then you can go up the scale and you can offer more of a white glove service or more of an experience for a higher fee. So that could be you are going to bring all the props for something. You're going to rent a special location. You're going to maybe pair this. I've actually seen this with, say, trauma patients and people that are at a retreat, right? This is going to lead into partnerships a little bit, but I want to draw this distinction here, is that when you offer another service attached to this, that's when you bring in a different customer segment, or you can bring in that higher white glove type of service.
I was just listening and thinking, so do you mean if you have a photography business for weddings, for example, and then you have a package that also brings in makeup artists? Is that what you mean with the partnerships?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So you can bring in partnerships with, like you said, with a wedding venue. You can bring in a partnership with a printer. You could bring in a partnership, like I said, I've seen it with actually trauma patients where they had a whole retreat and then that culminated in this like a makeover experience for the women that were there so that they could see what life could be like post as they deal with this bad thing that's happened to them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can package this to not only follow your own passions and callings and perhaps even ministries, but also bring in additional customers, additional revenue, and get your name out there. Again, while keeping your core skills the same of taking pictures.
Right.
So those are the first 2 places that I look for is, can you go up the value stream in terms of pricing? Can you go up and offer white glove service? Can you go down and offer a more value customer by taking things away or adding something to what your core offering is? And then can you collaborate with others and bring in something that is up the stream on the operations chain, again, like a wedding venue, or down the stream on that same operation and bringing in a printer or bringing in somebody that will blow up these pictures for you, or any number of things, right? Make you a video, all kinds of stuff like that. So there's other people that would be in your space that you can add their services to yours, upcharge for that. Again, your core offering doesn't really change and your core skill set doesn't change, doesn't require a lot of investment, but allows you to charge more and allows you to bring in more customers to your bubble. The fourth way that I would say is, can you take something that you're doing already and then enter a new market with it altogether? And when I say that is, again, I've been in many different industries, but most recently working with defense. And so working with a system that would not only do what it needed to there at the base, as far as I typically worked with like force protection type things.
Okay.
So you have a system that is protecting the space, but then you also have the capability of it is collecting data. And it is collecting data I was working in the drone space. So it's collecting data around it about these different drones, what types of drones, how people are flying. Kind of like when you're driving, you can figure out if somebody's texting or if they're drunk or things like that. Similar with a drone. You can figure out if somebody's flying weird, are they taking a survey of a house roof, that kind of stuff. So if you're collecting all that data, that's its own product. So it's doing its service, right? And you made a hardware sale. So now you've got two tiers of revenue, but then you can also harvest that data, slice it in a number of different ways, and sell it to other parties that would be interested in that data. Now, don't come after me on the legality of base data. That's just an example. So just saying, there are different ways that you can package pieces and parts of your product that would allow you to go into different markets and allow you to bring something else to the table. Prime example also, I know she just released her book, Cody Sanchez, talking about laundromats and how she'd first purchased laundromats. And then you can add a wash and fold service as a very white glove type of service. You can add partnerships with the soap supplier. You can add these different things and start to bolt on additional revenue streams, again, around your core offering. And that kind of segues into my very last point, which is cost savings. And sometimes those partnerships can also bring about cost savings. So like I was just saying about the laundromat, if you are now partnering with the soap supplier and or purchasing the soap supplier, but then that allows you to have greater efficiencies, to have better pricing, to contain your costs around some of your core, say, consumables, and that allows you to bring efficiencies to your finances and efficiencies to your operations. So also looking around at what it is that you're using, can you deepen the relationship there? Can you look around in your business and show that actually I have a lot of churn? This was a kind of go back to the warehouse example. I have a lot of churn because I'm fulfilling Amazon orders out of 3 different warehouses and they're all going to Amazon Central Point. So can I actually streamline and have just a Amazon station and all of my Amazon orders are fulfilled out of one area? So that all helps, or so that helps my other 2 warehouses operate much more efficiently. So there's a lot of ways too that you can start to look at, why are we touching things too much? Where are we paying too much and paying a premium? And where is it that we can add automations? Because in many of our businesses, we want super highly qualified people. You must have a master's degree to be a secretary. And you're like, what? But at the same time, are there places that we can automate ourselves out of a job? And I realize that's another like super sticky subject right now, is people being so concerned about AI and so concerned about this, and it's going to take my job and so on. Maybe. But I had the privilege of working at a company that, and I hold this belief still, is that automating yourself out of a job allows your human creativity, allows your education level, allows your essence and the goodness of you to be applied to something else that would be a hard problem that you can't teach a machine to do. So where can we try to automate out of jobs? Where can we try to automate out of touching too much paper? Where can we try to make systems work together? Because even everybody says time is money, right? So even you can get some cost savings associated with just going faster because you don't have to have as many bottlenecks and as many hurdles to get over when it comes to your processes, your order processing, your fulfillment, any of those kinds of things. So those are the main places that I look for when coming into a business and seeing where it is that we can give them that cash infusion and see where we might be able to expand. And a lot of it is you got to talk to people. And a lot of people don't like to do that anymore. But where is it that you can offer your skills or services to somebody else and see where they may need to grow? Again, going back to defense as well. I had one firm that I was working with that was trying to sell a piece of equipment. And then I had another global supplier or global partner that had just put in a new goal that they needed to get further into defense. Based on what they already did in terms of radios, they were already on damn near every base possible. So they're a hell of a partner if they're trying to get further into defense and I got a thing to sell, right? So where can you start to understand what people are trying to do in their own goals and match your goals to them so that you can move more efficiently, more effectively, and more profitably together instead of separate? And a lot of times we tend to think of collaborations or deals or negotiations as where somebody has to lose. And I think that there's definitely places where companies can join forces and move together much better. Collaboration is the new currency. Yeah, I was recently working with a group that they were building a new lab. And they had started out really small in their lab batches. And so they were starting at a very small scale, then they'd gone to a very moderate scale. They were moving up to a medium large and with sites on a large scale. But where they were leaving money on the table is every time they upsized, they not necessarily discarded the other assets, but they weren't utilizing them anymore. But there are limited quantities of those types of equipment pieces in function out in the wild, right? And they had already figured out how to up level from very small to smallish to medium to largish. So could we teach other people to do that? And that's actually, thank you for bringing that up too, because it does come with unused assets, but that also comes with expertise of where you've been. You really only have to be, let's say, 4% smarter than whatever it is you're trying to tackle. Same thing, you only have to be one chapter ahead of the student that you're trying to help and teach, right? So we were able to unlock a revenue stream with this client to help them sell that capability of, I've learned to make this solution in a very small scale. It's a very difficult chemistry process. And now we're going to utilize not only that equipment, but our expertise of how we went from a small scale to a medium scale. And we can teach other people to do that in other labs when labs are very limited. Now I can also, now that I've figured out how to get to large-ish, right? Now I can also add that service of going from small to medium to large-ish while I'm setting my sights on extra large and can continue to teach not only those that need help, but utilize those assets so they are turning revenue to help pay for my endeavors as I'm trying to move forward and scale. And so that's actually somewhere where we turned what was an operation that was entirely a cost center into starting to defray its own costs and become a revenue stream that most didn't actually see was a possibility until we pitched it that way, and turned out to be really successful and much more market demand than we even realized. So if you're looking to get acquired, and also starting to do collaborations, if you are going to get acquired, we see this especially tons in the defense, pharmaceutical, different spaces like that, is if you end up in somebody's value stream and you're providing so much value and they're coming back to you time and time again, that can naturally open up pathways for you to get acquired and naturally open up pathways for you to exit your business to where maybe you don't have to work as hard to get to that place. Maybe that 3 to 5 year path for you is more, how do I open up more partnerships? How do I open up potentially more eyeballs? And then how do I make myself a more attractive business and ultimately acquisition for someone in this value stream to take on so that they can defray their own costs and find efficiencies there. We also tend to see that owners can, again, because of kind of that tyranny of the immediate, like we were talking about all those fires happening, you end up setting your sights on either what your competitors are doing, and oh God, I need VC funding, or I need PE money, or I need these different infusions of massive capital, which also gives you massive reduction in your control of your business. Tread that carefully. But when you keep thinking like, oh, I have to get into this same space as my competitors, and that's going to require so much additional investment, there are often a lot of easier pathways that you can get to for creating additional value for your customers, creating additional methods of bringing customers in that really aren't nearly as hard as you think. And sometimes we tend to, in a stress capacity, tend to overthink things and tend to over-engineer when it's actually a lot easier, but it's harder for us to see that in a stress or survival type space. So I think that's where you can have some of that thought partnership with someone to come in and help you with what are just some ideas. What can we do? What are some different places we can unlock so that you can have more breathing room in your business and you can start to tackle additional hotspots as well as aiming for higher growth? It's just the whole forest but the trees kind of thing, where you are really stuck on just the crisis at hand and can't get into a creative space. It goes into like the hierarchy of needs, right? In our psychological space, if we're in a survival place, then you're not going to be able to get to a creative place to be able to see these potential opportunities. So what are some of those things that you need to work on yourself? Obviously, we talked about some of the things we come in and look for in the last episode. Here, we're talking about where you can increase your revenue. And we'll talk about what your financials in the story are really telling you, and then what it is that you can do about it. So we're really trying to walk you through some of these things because we know that in that tough time, in those spaces where it's difficult to really think creatively and think about how you're going to get through these next steps of growth and even maybe survival, we want to walk you through that in a bite-sized way. So thank you so much for joining. We will see you next week and continue thriving. Talk to you soon. Bye.